Economia Publishing is proud to welcome Professor Pissarίδης, Professor Χριστόφορος Πισσαρίδης, in this Delphi Economic Forum fireside chat. Of course, there is no fire, there is no real contact, but still we hope we have some interesting points to the conversation. Professor Pissarίδης of LSE and the Nobel Prize fame 10 years ago is a longtime friend of economia, and welcome from the historical center of Athens, near Monastiraki. Try and put some things straight about what's happening around us in Greece. When Professor Pissarίδης got his, he made a very interesting and very shrewd comment that until then he was mainly being asked to comment on things he knew. His main topic is labor economics. Then on, ask questions about everything. I would like to open this discussion with a rather wide question. Is he more or less optimistic about the next steps, both in the world economy, in Europe and in Greece? Where are we heading? Mr. Pissarίδης.
Thank you very much. You're asking about the global economy and Greece, where are we heading? From what I understood, because I'm afraid I have to say the sound quality is not very good, so I hope you forgive us if we get a question wrong. Am I optimistic? Well, I'm less optimistic now than I was 2 months ago, for sure. COVID is having a bigger impact on our economy than I had anticipated. And what's worrying me especially is the following about the world economy. We knew that in the last few years, maybe 2 or 3 years, especially, the biggest transformations taking place in our economy and the biggest challenges was how to incorporate the new technologies, automation, especially digital technologies, artificial intelligence, and at the same time succeed in helping workers, helping the economy adjust to the new reality, get to new jobs that were not susceptible to the new technologies. That process was moving quite well, especially with Northern European countries. Southern European countries were failing, as I pointed out a few times. China was doing exceptionally well in this process. In fact, it was challenging the United States, and that explains a lot about the reactions of President Trump to China. And then suddenly COVID comes along. Now, if you look at COVID now, you would think that the biggest problem that is causing is the recession in which the world economy has sunk. That's definitely a problem, and we have to deal with that as a separate issue. But in my view, COVID is introducing problems that will last into the medium and long run in the following sense. Automation is accelerating because companies are now realizing if they're going to automate anyway, and if they had plans to do it over the next 5 to 10 years to replace their workers with machines, they might as well do it now because machines are not susceptible to COVID. And the new jobs that were going to attract those workers who are losing their jobs to automation are not coming into the market because most of them involved human interaction. They were in the hospitality sector of the economy, tourism, when it comes to Greece, health and care, retail, trade, domestic services for less skilled workers. But those jobs will not be forthcoming because people don't want the close physical contact. So we're stuck in a sense. There is speeding up the destruction of jobs through automation and slowing down the creation of jobs for the workers who lose those jobs. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Good morning, Mr. Pissarίδης. This is Giannis Κουτσομύtis from the Delphi studio in Athens because our connection with Mr. Pαπagyanidis has been slowed down. Let me take over and ask you, please, which sectors of the
I cannot
Greek
hear
economy,
you. Sorry.
Which sectors of the Greek economy?
No sound.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear the last sentence, but I didn't hear anything.
All right. Let me rephrase. Which sectors of the Greek economy have the best potential to become internationally? Just a minute. Our technicians are fixing up the problem. Just a minute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Let's try again. Which sectors of the Greek economy you think have the best potential to become champions and become competitive in the international marketplace?
I'm not a fan of the situation where we name champion sectors and we move in and help them. In fact, I've been asked that question so many times, not only about the Greek economy, about the British economy, about the Chinese economy when I go to China, about the Cyprus economy, certainly when I'm there. And my answer is always the same. No one knows which sectors will be the most competitive. It's not something economists do, to sit and look at the economy and say, this sector is good, the other sector is not good. What the economist's job is, and I think that, and that's certainly where economic theory is going nowadays, is to identify barriers to private economic activity. And once you remove those barriers, then the economy will by itself converge in the sectors where there is a comparative advantage in terms of human capital, physical capital, geography, institutional structure, history. All these things contribute. But the economist's job is to make sure that the institutional environment of a country is favorable to the exercise of the entrepreneurial spirit. And certainly Greeks are very entrepreneurial. We can see what they do when they get released into a competitive environment. After all, Greek civilizations have been around for a very long time, so there must be something right with these people. It cannot be all wrong. All you need to do is to unleash that initiative, that spirit, and they will identify the sectors much better than you and I.
Exactly. I understand what you're saying. But isn't it also an issue of how to come in terms with the entrepreneurs and the business community who tend to invest in short-term gains rather than having long-term planning and having some investments that are not fruitful in the initial phase? How can we change the mentality of trying to raise shorter gains in the Greek entrepreneurial and business community?
It's not a mentality that drives people to invest short term. It's the structure of the economy and the incentives they are given to invest short term. If you give them the right incentives, they will invest long term. There is only one section of the economy which I believe it goes after a short-term gain, and this is the speculation in the banking sector with derivatives, with financial markets. Those are the only short-termists, and I am against those. I mean, finance was always this kind of finance, not corporate finance, was always a subject that I turned away in my academic studies and subsequent research, because I believe that they are essentially zero-sum games. When it comes to entrepreneurial activity, people go for the short term when they don't trust that things will be well in the longer term. You need to have trust in your government economic policy, in your environment, and if you have that trust, then you are going to invest long term. You see, to bring another example, I mentioned China 3 times now, so don't think that I'm really enamored to that country. I'm using it as an example because it's the fastest. It has been the fastest growing economy. They do plan for the long term. I mean, they are now planning what will happen in 2047 or something, you know. They build infrastructure that is like that. And therefore, when they create business there, like, you know, Huawei, for example, one of the main digital companies there, they plan in a way that they are going to build infrastructure for a digital transformation that will last for the next 100 years. Now, why is that? Because they trust that their government will behave in the same way 50 years from now as it is behaving now. They keep telling them all the time, and they cannot get rid of them very easily anyway. So they assume that it will be there. So in answer to your question, how can we make them behave long-term investments? Increase confidence in them that there will be political stability, that they will be able to get rewards from their investments, that the infrastructure will be there, and they will do it.
That's a very interesting question, because answer you gave me, because in Greece, the governments and the executive tends to search for short-term political gains also from the business community. So what we see now is a need for the social partners, the business community, and also the employers to come together and find a common ground on how to build the new future for Greece. And this will be a big issue for your committee as well.
Maybe. Sorry, I can't say about my committee. My committee has been given a remit by the Prime Minister, and before we talk to him, I'm not going to talk to anyone else.
All right. I thank you for that. Let me go back. You mentioned China, which is one of the initial big investors in Greece, and they made a huge investment in Piraeus, the port, which is proved to be quite successful. And they wanted to expand their investment base in Greece. On the other hand, we see geopolitical tensions with the United States and to some extent Europe as well, which sees Greece as a gateway for its investments in Eastern or Southeastern Europe. Do you see geopolitics as a chance or as a burden in Greece's economic future?
Well, I see this a risk that needs to be handled very, very carefully, because Greece is a small player. Even the whole of the European Union is a small player when it comes to United States and China, and in the not too distant future, I suspect India will be there as well as a huge country. I'm very worried about it in the sense that I do see behavior, especially from the United States in the last 3 or 4 years, which really makes no sense. It's almost random. You know, there is President Trump just throwing one tweet after another, and the Chinese are very sensitive about things they hear, and they react in ways that might be, say, too much in comparison to what the initial tweet was, because, you know, wait 24 hours and you might get another tweet after that. Who knows? But unfortunately, that situation is not handled very well. In fact, I was very disappointed when I saw the Pacific Cooperation Agreement being torn up by the Trump administration. Very disappointed about various things said about Europe. So when it comes to Greece and this sort of big time politics, the best thing Greece can do is to try, to the extent that it can, to get unanimity of opinion within the European Union, and for the European Union to act as one entity in this world. And that's partly why I'm so disappointed that Britain has taken the route that it has with Brexit. I don't think those who supported it, including the current Prime Minister, have given any deep thought to this issue. Though, you know, I don't know, they just campaign on trivialities when you put it within the framework of these geopolitical issues.
I see. Another big sector or issue for Greece in recent years has been the development of energy resources and the interconnection of the Eastern Mediterranean resources and in the basin of Cyprus and Israel, and potentially also in south of Crete. The pandemic crisis has created a huge gap in the energy demand internationally. Do you see energy resources still as a credible source of income for the region in general, and especially for Greece, since prices don't look to be in a very viable level for the near future?
Well, again, the prices of energy fluctuate in unpredictable ways. I mean, it's certainly the case that Greece in particular, but also the whole of the European Union and the Eastern Mediterranean with Israel, Cyprus, and Turkey, of course, following a very aggressive attitude there. We need to develop a good energy infrastructure. Now, there are a lot of pressures now, and rightly so, to encourage renewable resources. Greece has enormous potential in renewable resources because it's got the sunshine and it's got the wind in the Aegean, the two main sources. Although natural gas in the Eastern Mediterranean it looks profitable, and that's why you get the big companies willing to buy the rights and all that, and it should be pursued. I don't know, with the geopolitics of Turkey do worry me extremely, especially as a Cypriot. I've seen it all happen since 1974. And I don't want to see a repeat of that. And at the same time, though, it should be developing the renewable resources. I find it absurd, quite honestly, that Germany, for example, is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, users of solar energy in the European Union. And most solar panels of German companies are located in Germany. I mean, what kind of single market are we? There's no sunshine in Germany. I mean, why don't they come and put them on the Greek islands? There must be something there that is not quite working quite right. And it's up to Greece to tell the Germans, look, we've got 2,000 rocky islands. Put them there, wind farms, solar panels, and we'll provide the cables to take it back to Germany if you want to have your factories in Germany, not wait for the few days of the year when there's a blue sky to get some energy.
Absolutely. Well, there was a plan in the initial years of the Greek bailout era where the German government came and proposed some renewable energy projects for Greece. But it's very, very interesting that you mentioned that today, because today there will be a launch of a cable connection between mainland Greece, which is a vital part of being able to have sustainable renewable resources on islands, which we didn't have until recently, which is very important. But one last question, Mr. Pissarides. We're going now step by step out of this pandemic crisis, which is affecting all economies in the world, and Europe is much more vulnerable, looks more vulnerable than other regions of the world. What do you see as an escape way for the European Union and the European economies to come out stronger out of this crisis and not replicate the mistakes of the past?
Well, it's definitely essential there that Europe will work together, because we're too small within Europe, each country to deal with it on its own. There is, the various programs that have been announced by the European Union are a very, very good start. I hope it gets approved. Of course, they haven't been approved yet, but I hope they do get approved, especially now with the German presidency coming up. The Germans are always especially influential when it comes to finances. And I do think there should be collaboration rather than one country dictating to another. The whole of Europe should act together. Of course, with COVID, we depend very much on the medical profession. If they come up with a vaccine in the near future, things will be much, much better than if they don't. But then bear in mind that medical research since COVID and going back to SARS is now discovering that this is not a one-off event. There are hundreds of viruses ineffective in animals that could easily transfer to humans and create another one of these pandemics. We learn hard lessons. I hope China has learned hard lessons, because the misinformation, or the lack of information, I should say, in November, December has cost us a lot in the West and in Europe. What else can we say? Europe has strong economies when it works together. It's got highly trained people. The brain drain to the United States is slowing down as far as I can see, but it should just stop, because we're good enough to do it on our own. I'm very, very disappointed by what's happening in the United States with the George Floyd really tragic situation. What the president has been saying since then, fingers crossed about the next presidential elections in the United States. I'm not going to reveal my preferences, but you can guess what they are. I hope, when I go to bed at night in my more optimistic mood, I hope that there will be some enlightened collaboration within Europe and between Europe and the United States and the United States and China. But then occasionally I wake up at night in a state of panic and I say, oh my God. That's it.
Okay. Mr. Pissarides, we thank you very much for this discussion, which was done in collaboration with Economia Publishing. And we thank very much Mr. Papagannidis for preparing this conversation. Thank you very much, and hope to see you in physical terms next year at Delphi Forum.
Thank you. I hope so too. Thank you very much.
Goodbye.